What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast, where it is all around the company we keep. This podcast is powered by Famous Nutrition. Shop online at famousnutrition.com and use try30 for 30% off to feel famously good today. Enjoy the episode. For those who are listening to the podcast and not watching, we are here in a cabin out in backcountry of Thredbo with Geoff Wilson. Geoff, how you feeling, brother?
So good. So good to be here with you, Keegan.
Man, I was telling you before, I was like, we've done some really incredible podcasts like over the last couple of years, but mate, like coming out here, couple day trek into this remote backcountry, like this is going to be the coolest thing I think I've ever done.
And you've had everything. You've had like blue sky, icy conditions, and now a full-on blizzard outside. So genuinely, we've had to hide in a hut to survive it. You could survive in a tent, but it would be pretty miserable.
Man, even like these last couple of days, and obviously like this conversation, this podcast, it's going to be a lot about your story. I'm keen to unwind the last couple of expeditions you've been on, your background. But man, even these last couple of days, I've just been thinking about like, man, I just want to be an adventurer. You know, like there's something just so primitive and primal about being out here with no cell reception. Now, we've had a coffee over the fire. We're now sitting in the hut. Last night we camped in a tent. It's just what is it about it? What do you think is about it for you that just draws you out here?
I mean, we haven't had to go far. Like we're well into the backcountry, but geographically, it's not far, and you've lost signals. You're tearing away from all of the pressures of urban life. And then when a storm like this comes through, you don't have any brain space for all of the noise of suburban life, because it's all about making the right decisions, moving when we can, hiding when we can, and staying alive. Like there's plaques on the walls here for men and women that made their own calls, and that's sobering. You know, you're like, this is a wilderness that shouldn't be underestimated, and we've got you right in the middle of it, and you're doing well.
Yeah, and to be honest, mate, it's scary to see how the weather can change so quickly. Like this morning, so what did we do? So yesterday we hiked into this little sort of like, what do you call it? Like a bowl?
Not almost like a caldera. It's like a full snowball.
And it was perfect because we got to bring the kites out. You travel a lot by kite to save energy. So we're on the skis. First time using a ski. I've never used a ski before. So we got to get on the skis. We set up camp in this little bowl. We were cooking over the fire. And then this morning, woke up, got everything packed up, and the skies were blue. Because on the weather, you were saying that the weather should have been a bit dark. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the forecast is about 12 hours out. So the storm that we should have got last night allowed us to get to this ridge, and then it's whacked us. Like it would have been really unpleasant. And it's not unsafe until something goes wrong. You don't need a lot to go wrong in these conditions for it to cost someone their life. So, yeah, why push it? We're better off to go, okay, the tent can handle it, but we're standing up. If we're comfortable, we drive. Hopefully tomorrow we can move. If it's like this, we're not heading home tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll delay the flight.
Yeah.
Lucky we gave ourselves another little day. But even when we were trekking, it was looking really good. And then, because before we left, we had the map, and we were looking at the map, and we said, all right, well, we can kind of do an L shape through this little ridge and then back down. And as we got there, the incline was super gnarly, right?
Yeah, I think in deep, fresh snow, it wouldn't feel too bad because you can bury your boots, bury your skis. But in this icy stuff, you had like 1,000-foot drop off to a cliff on your lead, and the sleds are not designed for grading. Yeah. So they're trying to pull you off with boots. So we ended up not skiing, going to boots, and it still felt sketchy.
I'm not going to lie, man. I felt really vulnerable. Yeah. That time, like we can laugh about it now. I mean, I had Declan, our cameraman, in front of me, and his sled kept turning over as he was walking, and the attacking just stopped. And I was like, bro, we're so close. We've just got to get to that next mark. And you look over the edge, and I was thinking if that sled sort of like just took off a little bit more, it's probably going over.
Yeah, it wasn't like if you had a beautiful run out, you wouldn't be too stressed. But because you have this cliff below you, you'd hit it about 40K and then get airborne. Yeah, and it would be ugly. And then this has come in, so nobody's picking up. Yeah. So, and I think that's the the rawness of it is learning how to manage all of those things. It always throws different things at you.
Yeah.
But as your confidence grows, you probably don't push the boundaries quite so much, at my age, but at your age, you're probably going to push the boundaries a bit more, get a smack down and then come back a bit.
Sure.
But it's amazing. We haven't had to go far for you to really get a feel of what a backcountry or off-grid expedition feels like.
It's kind of feels like it's giving me a little taste of it, right? Like giving a taste of it, I would say in a really safe environment. Like I feel very safe with you. If you weren't here and it was just me and Declan, I feel like we would be in a little bit of trouble. But then because I think about it constantly, especially for me personally, I want to get into this. Like I want to do this more. How do I start? Where would someone start?
It's just going, okay, the thing for you, you've got the athleticism, you've got the stamina, you've shown that already with the marathons and the footy. It's really just skills development then, and learning to read, learning to navigate, learning to read weather systems, wind. Because no matter what you do, whether you're just hiking, trekking, skiing, you have to understand what's coming at you. And then that's just time out here, like more time out here, doing trips with Kit, doing trips with me, and then slowly you get to the point where your confidence levels are, wow, okay, I could do a solo. And then dealing with your mindset solo can be really a struggle for someone who hasn't had time solo to learn how their brain ping pongs around in the brain box when there's nothing else out there and no one to talk to. And that took me kind of years to master. So, the awesome thing is you never stop learning.
Yeah. Even you now, after all your expeditions you've done and what records and everything?
Yeah, for sure. I still feel like, there's snow conditions we've not seen before. It just changes. And with the global warming side of things that were stable aren't, and things that were unstable are. So everything's shifting. You can never kind of go, this place is safe, this one's not. You just got to go day by day, hour by hour.
Remember, even when we were walking through that really steep vertical part, we kind of realized that the sleds were just going to keep rolling and rolling, and it probably wasn't safe. So we end up pulling them together, which ended up working really well. But that also meant you were by yourself carrying your ski. Yeah. And so me and Declan, we were walking through, and I looked at you were struggling, and I looked at the drop, and I was thinking, if we lose you, we're probably in a little bit of strife.
Yeah.
Because what I keep coming back to is like, I think people who want to get into this more, I think it's a super attractive thing to get into, but the barrier to entry is pretty high to get into. Like, not many people would be friends with someone like you. So I'm trying to think, like, if you were starting from scratch, would it just be a matter of reaching out to someone or kind of coming out here? Like, how would you navigate that, do you think?
Yeah, it's just about finding an uplink, someone in your world, or, with Google now, finding someone who's done something like what you dream to do. And I think that's picking a journey or a challenge that might have a whole bunch of skills that you don't have yet. And then finding the best people in the world. Because, I started my polar journey. It's really low, compared to most polar journeys. I've done a lot of expeditions, but mainly desert. And then I was 39, with kids in the 10s, 11s, 14s, with my first journey. And I had literally 3 weeks solo and then did the longest journey of my life, 53 days crossing Antarctica from coast to coast through the pole and made every mistake under the sun and still got there just for sheer grit, really, not through good management.
But to be honest, I want to talk about the expeditions. I want to talk about Antarctica and the crossing Greenland and all these really wild things that if you were to read the resume, you're like, fuck, how do you fit this in, But I want to go back to where it first started. You were born in Africa. You were born in Uganda. Can you tell me what it was like being born there and then your, I guess, navigation over here to Australia?
Yeah, I was born... but folks were working in a vet station in Uganda.
Done with vets as well?
My dad is a vet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and his grandfather was a vet and his dad was a vet. So I'm fourth generation.
Just comes in the family.
With me, unfortunately. But he was working in a vet station there, and then Idi Amin, the dictator, came in and was starting to chop heads off people and put them in freezers, and he was going a bit psychotic. So Dad was like, we're going to get out of here.
Did you have any conversations with your dad about what it was like back then? Because you would be so young, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was born there in a place called Katali, but the son Katali's name Kacham, and then he escaped by light aircraft from Idi Amin when I was 5, and the sister was 7. And with my mum, and we were squeezed into this tiny little Cessna.
Little tin can.
Yeah.
With an engine.
Yeah, and then he flew 42 days to get to Australia.
How did you do that? Just stopping at island to island?
Well, yeah, it was kind of like to Kenya, then refuel, then all out through Africa, and then across the Saudi states, and then across to India, Pakistan, and then down Indonesia, and then across to Darwin. Landing in Darwin just after Cyclone Tracy in 1975. And then, they were colonial British, and they'd landed in this war-torn bloody, it looked like a war had happened because Cyclone Tracy just wiped the whole place out.
Yeah.
And then Dad got a job in Townsville in the veterinary research station. So I did primary school in Townsville. Then we headed back to Kenya for like 10, 11, 12, 13, and then Indonesia, and then back to Brisbane. So it's been like this full circuit, but adventures all along the way. It never really stopped being adventure.
What was the first moment or the first draw to adventure, exploration, being outside, doing all of that stuff? Do you have any first memories of that? Was it like teenage years, or was it early?
No, I feel like it was even earlier, like 8 or 9. I would just duck off and head off into the bush, and I'd navigate my way out, navigate my way back. Mum and Dad's parenting style. Now would be considered pretty loose.
Should we bring that back though?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there were quite so many risks then, but I'd be out as long as I was home by dinner. They were happy. So I think the navigation, all of that was happening really early. And then the first kind of bona fide adventure was when I was 17, flying to London and then buying a bicycle and cycling all the way back to Kenya.
Sick. How long was that?
It wasn't that long. It was probably 100 days in total.
Still like 100 days.
Yeah.
Still beyond a quarter of the year.
Yeah, crazy. And I met a guy on the train in London, Albury, and with still mates. He saw me. It was in the middle of the 1988 Expo in Brisbane. So Australian Expo. I was shirt on and I was smiling, and he knew I was Aussie straight away. He's like, "You're Aussie. No one else in here is smiling." They're all like miserable in the train subway. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm cycling in Africa. I want to come join." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So he ended up buying a bicycle and cycled to Dad.
Gotcha.
And then my best mate Simon, who I met, we were born within 3 days of each other in Kenya, in Africa. He was working in England, and he said, "Listen, I'll fly to Venice. When you get to Venice, I'll join you with the same bicycle." So we all had the same bicycle, so we were roughly about the same pace.
Gotcha.
And then cycled all the way through like Europe and then Yugoslavia, and then Syria kicked off. So there was a war kind of, we were going to go through Turkey, Syria, Israel, Egypt, but the whole place kind of blew up. So we ended up taking a boat from Greece to Egypt. And then in Egypt, I had a guy try and shoot me in the head with a AK-47.
At 17?
Yeah, I've just had my 18th birthday.
What happened? Why'd they do that?
Kind of weird. We were trying to get away from the mosquitoes around the Nile Delta because they're just unbelievable, even with the net. You couldn't see the moon for the number of Aussies on the net. Just trying to get India full of malaria. So we'd cycle into the desert to sleep overnight. And this night we're cycling out, and there's a boom gate and these pyramids that you could see in the background. And this soldier came out, and he was just going ballistic and super aggressive. And as he was walking, he was taking the bayonet off the front of the gun. And I'm thinking, if he's just for show, why is he taking the bayonet off?
Yeah.
And he holstered the bayonet, and then just came up and jammed the gun on my forehead. And this is probably the first memorable miracle is through my adventure career. Obviously, I've pushed for length.
Yeah.
But I would say 7, 8, 9 times there's been a point where I've gone, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
And as recent as 3 months ago, something shifted. Like, you could only describe it as a supernatural miracle.
Yeah.
Because this guy was trying to kill me for sure.
Yeah.
Because I could see his finger like going white on the trigger. So I
What-
knew it was applying pressure.
What were you thinking about? Oh,
I reckon so quick. It was just like, oh, this guy's going to kill me.
yeah.
And then he couldn't pull the trigger. If at the same time, in the middle of the night in Indonesia, my mum kind of had an audible voice go, if your boy's about to die, get on your knees. And she slipped out of bed and she's covered me, like she's protected me many times, but some of them I don't even know. But this is just one she remembered that she's in a nightie and she slips out and just gets on her knees and I don't know what's going on, but I just pray for my son. And it's like this faith-filled prayer of a mother. I think a mother's prayer is so powerful.
Yeah. Man.
And this guy just couldn't pull the trigger. And he pulled and there was a loud clunk and I felt the round reload in through the bones of my head.
Yeah.
But he had a belt on. The first round was empty, so the belt was fed in second round, and then he was pulling again. And I'm like, well, I've survived the first attempt. Let's just back away. So we backed away and turned away and rode like mad, waiting for the ba-ba-ba-ba through the back, but it never came.
Wow.
And there was a lot of yelling, and then we kind of rode back into the delta and found like a little boma where they keep cattle to sleep and the wild dogs were having to go at us. But it was the first kind of time where I just knew something had shifted.
Yeah.
Like it was unbelievable. But it's happened again and again and again. Like a bear trying to kill us in Alaska or the storm that we had 3 months ago off island that was the size of Russia. Like it was huge.
Yeah.
Storm. And, it's stopped. It was just, it killed us all.
Do you believe everything happens for a reason? What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think like everything comes together for good. I mean, obviously I'm an extreme optimist. I wouldn't do what I'm doing without some extreme optimism.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'd work out. And you'd be traveling with people who are not optimists and go, wow, this is a bleak place to do this stuff. Because if you're out here and you're expecting the worst, like this storm now, I'm like, oh, it'll pass overnight. I'll travel in the morning. It'll be a bit rough, but we'll be fine. Whereas someone without an optimistic outlook's like, oh man, we're stuck in this hump for days. You're going to miss our flights. We're not going to be back home on the coast till Wednesday. Yeah.
Is that a reality?
It's a possibility.
It's good to have this conversation. Yeah. We might be getting the later flight.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. But like the great thing with Australian storms as compared to Antarctic storms or Greenland storms is they move incredibly quickly. Yeah. So there'll be another front behind that'll push this out of the way. I'd be surprised if we're not moving tomorrow. But it's just a mindset you approach it with. I think, thinking everything works out together for good is really just an extreme optimist viewpoint. But also I think when you've had a miracle, faith-driven miracle happen, you get a shift in your mindset and it can lead you to take more risks because you feel like you've got to get out of jail free card. And I think when I was younger, that probably was true.
Yeah.
But I think now I realise,
you're talking about a get out of jail free card, and because we were actually talking about this on the way up here. I would have thought someone that has like a near death experience like that, or you said you had multiple, I would have thought that might have deterred some people. But you think, oh no, I've got another chance. So run me through.
Yeah, and I think it ties back to the whole optimism thing. It's like, the simplest way to describe it is if you're on a motorbike and you're coming into a corner fast and you can see that there's an obstacle, you register it, but then you're like, no, we're fine, we're going to make this corner. Yeah. And then you look to where you want the bike to go. Yeah. We've only just done my motorbike course.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, this is fresh in my mind. And naturally, you're looking at the obstacle, but a bike will go where you're looking. Same as a horse or, bicycle. So if you're looking at the obstacle, the chances of you smacking into it are 9 times if you register it in your brain and then push hard and do the corner. So I kind of feel like optimism is just looking where you want to go, but not this blind optimism where you don't see the obstacles along the way. And I think in the adventure sense, you've got to see trouble coming, but you can't spend too much time deliberating on it because the amount of calories you burn, especially in an endurance journey like I do, you're down to, your body's burning more than you can absorb.
Yeah.
So if you're wasting calories on worry and fear and self-doubt, then, you're really getting into a very dark place. So the get out of jail free card thing is really just that dangerous thing where, you're such an optimist and you have this ability through supernatural favor and faith to get out of trouble when it happens. But, you also recognize the number of times you had like Trump's bullet shown through the ear that close that you're like, wow, if I had been an inch the other way, this would all be over. So it's a mixture of blind optimism, looking for obstacles, but also an appreciation for being here.
Yeah. Do you reckon that gratitude flows through way much more so after those events?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a family person, as a dad, as a husband, I'm always aware of what it would be like if I made a mistake for everybody else. So the consequence of losing a big person in your life, not to say that quiet people can be easily missed, but you create noise, like similar to your personality. People are drawn to you because you've got this life coming out. The optimism, you can also be like a log in a stream where there's 50 people hanging off the cake. You got to shake them off. But, when you lose someone with that big personality, and explorers are not always outwardly big personalities, but they've got to have some bigness about them to do what they do.
Yeah.
So I'm aware Sarah's life would radically change if I was out of the picture. I know Katali it would be very hard for him to recover if I made a mistake. Conversely, if I've just seen one of my best mates lose his son this year, and watching him go through, a personality altering shit just reminds me to take a little bit more caution out here. Like, I don't ever want to be, responsible for that big dynamic shift in my girl's life, your kid's life, and Sarah's life, and then all the people along the way that depend on you.
Because the first question I think that comes to my head is just like, well, why do it? If the risk is so gnarly and the consequences are dire, why push on?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And I think we unpack that a lot in Kit's next film, Project Zero.
Which I'm keen to talk about.
Which I think that really unpacks it. It's like, part of me wishes I had been born without that explorer gene. But, I've lost more mates through depression, loss of weight, suicide than I have through avalanche or crevasse.
Yeah.
So, I could count on one hand the number of mates that had died of illness, particularly in my space.
Yeah.
The high altitude alpine space is a different beast, and that doesn't really attract me because you can be doing everything right and be killed by somebody else's mistake. I'd rather die from my own mistake.
Yeah.
But I think the risk taking and understanding it as part of your core being is really hard, because I kind of feel like multiple times along the way, Sarah could have said, hey, that's it. And she's put a foot down at the end of Project Zero, but that was 651 days on expedition over 3 years. So it was brutal.
Just for people who are listening, just to give like a little bit of an understanding of like your resume, like what you've done over the years. I'd love to read a few of them out. The wind-assisted crossing of the Sahara Desert, which was 42 days back in, I think it was like 2009 or earlier. You were the first to cross the Torres Strait by kiteboard. You were the fastest solo unsupported crossing of Greenland. Was that with Simon?
Yeah.
That was with Simon? Yeah. Fastest solo unsupported coast-to-coast crossing with Antarctica in 2014, 3,500 kilometers in 53 days. The first person to summit Dome Agnes unsupported, which was a Guinness World Record, and the longest solo unsupported polar journey in history back in 2020, which was 5,300 Ks across Antarctica by kite, 58 days, which was also a world record. And then you throw in the recent expedition with Qatari Project Zero, which is 45,000 kilometers sailed. You mentioned 651 days, roughly, where the boat's been out, avalanches, killer whales, polar bears, like that whole thing. I do wonder how Sarah does it.
I think she's got to the end.
Yeah. Gotcha. What was the conversation?
Well, it wasn't so much about the risk, because I think she understands we're very diligent in our prep. Like, say for the last Antarctic journey, it was 7 years of planning and 58 days of the doing, and that kind of has to be the ratio to get it done well.
7 years of planning?
Yeah.
Really?
It's crazy. What? Crazy. So permissions, planning, development, skills development. And then, like, arguably, I don't know, like there's been many people trying to break that record. I don't know how you do it. Like it would be, there's just not enough space, because it takes a particular set of skills rather than navigate. And it was a circle route too.
Yeah, can you run me from the start? How did Project Zero look?
So Project Zero was basically a bit of a learning. Kit and I have sat down and said, listen, if we're going to continue to explore, and yet the places that we love are getting damaged by the humans and the way that we live, then we can't get there in big fuel guzzling machines anymore, choppers, planes, boats. Let's try and do a series of adventures where we learn how to get there, leave no footprint, do the journey, and offset any carbon we produce. So from all the way from the jackets to the skis to the boots, to the diesel use, within the boat, paint on the boat, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So we had Finn Walton in the background measuring all the carbon off.
That's so cool.
Working out how many trees per leg we had to plant.
So you're fully carbon neutral?
Yeah, fully carbon neutral.
Wow.
So from start to finish. And the first journey was from Gold Coast to South America, and we got our asses handed to us. I think we had 7 storms along the way, 2 between New Zealand, had a lot of damage to the boat, got to New Zealand, got repaired, and then another 40 days past there to get to Chile. And then that was the first journey. But the second journey was crossing the Patagonian ice cap, but from sea level. So normally you would take a helicopter to the snow line. We spent 3.5, nearly 4 days dragging sleds through the wet, dripping jungle. It was just brutal. It was horrible. The jungle was so thick sometimes that we're passing sleds over logs and then crawling on our guts and pulling the crew. It's all this weird moss, and then go to the snow line and cross from Chile to Argentina and then back to Chile and then come back through that same jungle to get picked up by the boat.
Yeah.
That's just journey 2 of 5. And then the third journey was sailing down to Antarctica, crossing the terrifying Drake's Passage. And then we got dropped off and we were attempting to cross the peninsula, which is Antarctica like a thumb.
Yeah.
The thumb leading up to South America, crossing that thumb from the Ross Sea to the Weddell Sea and then back. And then that was just so dangerous.
What was dangerous about it?
Just had a massive snow dump on a very warm base. So anyway, anything we touched was just avalanching, and then we're going up a glacier and the avalanches are coming down the side so close to the city, getting pushed in the face by the wind coming off the avalanches.
Is that when you had the dream?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so about a month before we got there, so I'm on the boat and I had this dream that I'm roped up to Kit, I'm leading, and we're crossing over snow above a cliff into a crevasse field. And it's in Antarctica. I can just tell from the light and the rock structure. And then above is like, Lion's Rock in Lion King.
Yeah.
They call it the baby.
Yeah.
It's like that above, but it's got a big chunk of ice under it. And in my dream, that ice breaks away and it starts an avalanche. And I'm untying because I know it's going to kill me, but I want it to kill Kit.
Yeah.
And I untie but it's too late and we both get taken off the cliff. And then I wake up and I'm like, that's unusual for me to have a dream that specific.
You don't usually have dreams like that?
I don't really dream a lot at all.
Yeah.
And anyway, I parked it, thought it's probably just anxiety. I'm just I'll often see trouble ahead of time and then we'll mitigate this, making plans to avoid that sort of scenario. Anyway, we're climbing for about 7 days up this glacier and just the whole time getting warnings that the place is angry, avalanches are coming down both sides, and Antarctica is usually very stable. It's ancient ice, so you don't usually get the instability we were seeing, but it had been, like global warm, and it just felt different. And then we got to the final pitch, which was 2 kilometres up this slope, and a crevasse field on the right with a cliff above it. And then I look up and I go, oh, at least Lion Rock's not there. But then I'm looking at satellite imagery because we've taken satellite images and stored them on my iPad so that when we got to this point, we could work out where the crevasses were. Yeah. And I realized that on that image is Lion Rock. It's just we can't see it because there's so much snow over the top. Gotcha. It's just hanging. And when I look at it, I realize it's about to go. Like it's got cracks all through it.
And so do you express this to Kit?
Yeah, and Kit had been a little bit bummed because I'd been talking over the previous days thinking if we get to this last pitch, it's super steep and if the snow's unstable, so Kit, it's, in the words of Shackleton, better a live donkey than a dead lion. Any day, my dear. He wrote to his wife when he was 90 miles short of the pole saying, if we get to the pole, we're going to die on a return journey like Stock. I'm going to tent. And I just said to Ken, hey, we've got to make good decisions. Let's get to the top. And then when I saw Lion Rock, I just said, Kit, this is what I saw in my dream. And Kit's like, well, what do you think? I said, if we climb, we will not be going home. And then he said, well, I don't want to use dreams to make my decisions. Hey, well, let's put the dream aside. Let's look at the terrain and what it's telling us. You go and dig an avalanche slot, which...
What's that?
Basically, you get on the slope and you put 2 poles down deep, and then you get a bit of stream and you run it behind those poles all the way down. So you end up with about a 3-metre tower of snow. And it'll give you the historical fall over the whole of that winter. And then you dig around that pole so it's by itself, and then you just tap it. And if it doesn't fracture, then you're good to climb. Essentially, this is simplifying it. But it fractured at 90 centimetres and at 1.20 meters.
Gotcha.
And it was so unstable. It had these ball bearings in it. So the whole slope was on, it was like you had 1.5 meters of snow on top of ball bearings.
Wow.
And I said, disregard my dream kit. If you did this anywhere on the planet and somebody you knew traveled over that ice and they died, would you say it was their fault? He said, yeah, absolutely. This is Matt's. Yeah, I'd go, okay, well, that's up. But then I got into the tent and my forecasting comes through a guy in Belgium. He's just an absolute genius, Mark de Kaiser. And he had sent an alarm email, like urgent open. And I opened it and he said, listen, you've got a polar hurricane making its way to you. And I'm like, he's only ever used the word hurricane and polar together once before in my career, which is 2013, in a storm on the Antarctic fringe before I got to the mountains that nearly killed me. So when I saw those words, I had this instant kind of memory of what that was like. And then Kit was excited. He's like, awesome. I get to live through what you lived through. And I said, Kit, you do not want that experience.
Yeah.
Like I hope your whole career you never see a storm like this. But I said at altitude, it's going to be very hard for us to survive this. I think we'd be foolish to wait here just for the experience. I think my advice would be, we've already decided we're turning, but we don't even have the option of sleeping tonight. So we've had a huge day to get there. It was already about 9 o'clock at night.
So you're meeting the boat at a point?
Yeah. So with the boat was probably, I think, can't remember, 100, maybe 100 kilometers away.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, we can, if we really force march downhill, we could get to the boat before the storm hits. But our boat's got to come out of hiding because it was in safe harbour with a big wall of ice that was protecting it.
Yeah.
The storm would have gone over the top. It's got to get to us. It'll take them a day to get to us. We've got to get on board and then get back to safe haven before the storm hits. And then Kit's like, what if it's wrong? And we shortcut our Antarctic adventure, and hey, well, statistically, I don't think I've ever seen it wrong.
Yeah.
So there will be a storm of some sort. It just mightn't be as strong as he's predicting. 200 kilometre winds and something a tent wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
Like 3 times the strength of what we got outside.
Wow.
So in the end, we agreed, listen, let's go. And we had one of the most amazing nights at the Keegan sun, because it got into this weird twilight where it wasn't dark, wasn't light, but the moon was high, full moon. And I'm like, kid, there's a lot of crevassing in here. I'm not really comfortable now. 2 kites up, but with the cold wind pushing down the glacier, we have 50 metres of rope between us, put the sleds in the middle, below we did today.
Yeah.
And then you have a line. If I yell out crevasse, I'll stop as quickly as I can and you brake. But that way we're only running 1 kite. So for about 3 hours, it was like a video. We were racing down this place.
You guys are flying. Yeah.
Oh, flying. But we were like, crevasse, and then turn hard left, and then crevasse, turn hard right. And just wild.
Is that, what would happen if you hit a crevasse? You just go,
No, yeah, the lead climber, we just got straight in.
oh, good tip, right?
Yeah, it would be big. Going down slope would be really hard because your momentum would carry you, and if you both went in, then you're sure. Yeah.
Man, I think like this whole project you have your Guitarium, these years, right? How has your relationship changed over from the start to the end? Because I remember you put up a post at the very end of it, and you mentioned Geoff Wilson. You said strong, resolute, fierce under pressure, creative, master of rock, cracked ice and sea, masculine yet kind, expert yet humble, a tenacious and safe partner for me on the ice. I'm proud of his achievement, but I'm more proud of how he got there. Beautiful, man.
Yeah. And oh man, that's emotional. Because when he was 17, we did a journey in Alaska and everything went wrong. It was just one of those journeys where even the maddest optimist got beaten down.
Yeah.
You know, we had a grizzly bear try and tell us both, but that was kind of at the end of a whole bunch of other near-death experiences. Anyway, Kit didn't react real well. And he was just too young. You know, like I put him under too much pressure early. And at the time, I'm like, man, it's not so much that he didn't react well. He just blew up. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to be safe doing long expeditions with him.
Yeah.
If he can't, like, when things go wrong, you don't attack your partner, you just attack the problem.
Yeah.
And the shift over the 5 Project Zero journeys was that the attacking of the partner stopped completely. And now it's just attacking the problem. And we work so well together. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a father-son team work so well. Your constellation of skill sets, it's perfect. I found being out here, like I've missed him, but it's a real heart sickness out here because he should be here.
Yeah.
But it feels weird him not being alongside me.
Because you've done so much together.
We were on so many miles together through the years. So, but yeah, it's strong. He's almost like the better off software upgrade of Geoff Wilson. He's got the better operating software. He's not as flammable.
But isn't that what every parent wants? So I'm not a parent, I don't know, but isn't that what most parents want, is to see their son or daughter progress further than what they have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're healthy and confident and you're not challenged by your children, then that's perfect. But, you know, the reverse, when you see parents that are trying to knock their children down, it's tragic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I you know, with the 2 girls, Jade and Java, it's just amazing to see them bloom and grow. For Kit, in that young man kind of angst that you get as a young man, where you don't really know what your purpose is, watching him navigate through that. And then I think just like the kindness under pressure as well. Like he'd always think about someone else on the boat who wasn't doing as well, or for the, Mick's riding over the side, she's crossing the Atlantic, and I'm taking the piss out of him in the film, and the kid's holding his head and making sure he doesn't go overboard.
Yeah.
Like he's just, I don't know, something very special about it.
What do you think your advice would be? Because I look at Jade, who I know quite well through Simon, Java. I spent a bit of time with over the years, and Kit, Katali. I don't know all three of them quite well, and they're all super just happy, confident people. How do you think you build happiness and confidence in kids these days? Well, how did you navigate it?
I think we didn't get it right on everything. Like, I wish we'd been a bit tougher financially on them, like, run the pocket money thing, or more part-time jobs. But, other than that, I think, obviously it's really hard if your main core marriage or relationship doesn't work, then it becomes really hard. But we were fortunate that Sarah and I met as best friends, and we're still best friends. I'll say 4 years later. Yeah. We take a piss of each other.
I love the way you guys talk on the phone as well. When we were coming out here and they were talking about that TV show, The Summer I Turned Pretty. And she was just, wish you were here, doll.
Yeah.
I needed you here.
Yeah. Just making all these promises. I'm like, yeah. But yeah, we're still madly attracted to each other. And like, I think that's given those 3 kids a real base.
Yeah.
But then I think the other thing is also an understanding of the importance of faith. Like a human being without some sort of belief. And it really doesn't bother to me whether they're Hindu, Buddhist, or even atheist, if they understand why they believe that. But the Australian kind of like our apathy and not really caring creates this inability to find direction. And I think that's one thing, whether they agree or disagree, Sarah and I have always had a faith and always stood for it. And in the household, that's meant that there's always something bigger than you. And I think understanding that you're not the alpha and omega keeps a healthy mindset.
Okay.
And then when you get out here, like today, that weather, how big did you feel in that weather?
I felt very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Very vulnerable.
Yeah. And that's like all the ego just gets compressed out here. So I think for me as a man coming into the household, having, been humiliated in multiple environments, I think that allowed me to father in a way where I could foster their confidence and not have to promote my ego. But then also they've had a blessed life in that we've always been in environments. So we've lived with them on board on a sailing boat. We've driven a Land Rover from Cape Town to Nairobi. So, we've had intense times together, and there's times when we wanted to kill each other.
Which probably brings you closer together as well.
And times when I thought, how are these 3 kids going to be best mate? And Sarah really knocked their heads together and said, hey, in my family, our siblings, she's really close to her brother and not close to her sister. And it's like, I don't want that for you. I want you to be best mates for the whole of your life. Yeah. How do we set that up? And then now with them, Jade's 30, Java's 26, kids 25 at the end of the year. They're besties. They talk every day on the phone. That's cool. So the phone bills are crazy. But I think it's great to look as a dad now and look backwards and go, hey, I don't think I would change anything. The only thing, I was a bit heartsick. The pitch for the Project Zero film really unpacks the whole question that you asked earlier. If the risks are so great, why? And also, as a dad, for a young Katali, the gaps that I was away exploring felt huge to him, whereas it might only have been 3-4 months out of 12 or 18 or even 24 months.
But I imagine for a kid, that's huge, right?
Yeah, especially when they don't know if they're coming home. Like he was savvy enough to know at an early age what the risks were. And I think if they understand that potentially dad's not coming home. It makes it even seem longer. So as part of the Project Zero, we really unpacked and explored that. And I think that will make the film really watchable to a wider audience.
Yeah.
It's not just rah-rah adventure, 5 adventures back to back. And we only got to, what did we get to? The second one, the third one in Antarctica, and then sail the boat all out to Iceland, and then cross Iceland on horseback, which is great.
The visuals that when we went into Rhythm Snow on the way in here, we picked up a heap of kit, and there was even some beautiful imagery in the magazine. Was that from Project Zero? That was from Project Zero.
That was the fourth one.
Like the visuals, like Katali is just like the most insane filmmaker, photographer, storyteller, and to be able to see that as just before we were going to go into this journey, so beautiful. Yes, it was so cool.
And those horses were something special as well. We were both heartsick when we had to leave them behind.
Yeah. You still learn about it?
Yeah. Anyone wants to go for a ride, they're still in southern England, southern Iceland.
So what is the plan with the film? Is it?
I think it's in the Amsterdam Film Festival this month.
Okay.
Looking for funding because we really wanted to do it cinematic, like 4K, just huge. Because I've never had a cameraman on expedition before.
Gotcha.
So to have Kit there, and have his skill set, but also working out in his head how he wanted to tell the story for each day, has been amazing. So
did he know it was going to be like the love story of a father and son going into it, or was that just kind of evolved?
No, I think it's kind of evolved because, I mean, Chai Bassarelli is an incredible filmmaker who did Free Solo with Jimmy Chin. She was more like love story bent and he was more adventure, and they started dating and he's like, oh, I don't work with my partner. And then she won out. So you've got a love story here.
Yeah. And
Free Solo was one of the greatest adventure films of all time. Not because it's about a guy who's crazy climbing without a rope, but because it's about this incredible partnership that calmed him down. And I think, like, Katali's scene is that I'm way less fiery than I used to be. And
I would have loved to see Geoff back in the day.
Yeah. We had a guy complaining about his cat haircut or something, and he was being abusive to a nurse. Yeah. And then as I escorted him from the building as calmly as I could, he flicked my stethoscope, and I just said to him, and you're so lucky you didn't meet me at 35. But I mean, I thought I was doing the right thing, but it was stressful for Sarah. Yeah. She never knew when this explosion would happen. Yeah. I think the wilderness has just rubbed those edges off, a bit like a rough piece of rock. And, as a father, I think sometimes we're going to get involved, our kids have been unjustly dealt with. We're going to sort this out. And all we do is stress the hell out.
Yeah.
So just standing back and watching and being calmer. I think for Kit traveling with me as an expedition partner, he can trust my reactions more than he could, say, 10 years ago. So it's two-sided. He's grown during Project Zero, but I've definitely grown and gone grey in Southern Ocean because that was so stressful. But the love story, I think, father to son, is so unique. I think story has to be told. It's got to be told well with a big budget cinematic production, and that's what Kit's aiming for.
Man, I can't wait to see the whole thing. It's going to be. I actually spoke to Kit on the way out here, and I knew the story of you guys going out there and what the film was about, and I wanted to get his thoughts on it, especially about growing up, about you being away so often. I was like, how did that feel? And he's just like, yeah, it was obviously like we talked through it, we go through the whole thing, but he's like, don't get me wrong. It's like when Dad was home, he was the most present, dedicated father ever. And I could feel, I could hear it in his voice. And I heard that, I was like, man, that's really special, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of the crazy stuff we do, even just locally. Like we borrow a mate's kayak and we drive up to Canunga, chuck it in the creek, and then tell Sarah to pick us up a day later. And then we didn't realise it was a firing range halfway through the river. So we're floating through this weaponised army firing thing. And then when Sarah picks us up, she's livid because she realises I've put a boy in harm's way again.
Yeah.
And like, so the local adventures at home and just being present.
Mm.
And I do say that, like often if I speak on resilience or character development or fatherhood, I'll get men come up after and go, how do I make resilient children?
Yeah.
And I say, well, you don't really. You just be present.
Yeah.
And go camping. Don't, forget the matches and have a cold night. Take a tent that leaks. Just don't be super prepared. Like this whole...
purposely, like setting up the environment so it's a bit harder for them?
Yeah, exactly. Don't. Like the whole Winnebago, that's not... Yeah. Get off the devices. Get far enough away that you don't have to take their devices. The devices just don't work.
Yeah.
And be away long enough that you can break that umbilical cord to digital media. I think even more so now. But now just be underprepared. Be that bumbling dad that makes mistakes. And they're like, Dad forgot my matches again. And they're like, well, it happens too often to be an accident.
What's he doing here?
Yeah, what's he doing?
Yeah. You mentioned a thing before about managing emotions and how Geoff at 30, 35 was a lot more fiery than what he is now. I can only speak personally. When I was, 18, 20, early 20s when I was playing footy, super aggro. Like off the field, not so much, but on the field, super aggressive. And I've looked now as I enter into my 30s, I feel like I'm more relaxed. Like I obviously pot-headed like every now and then, but not so much. Do you think the ability to manage emotions now, do you reckon that's easier with time? Or even I even try to think with a lot of guys who are in their 20s, 30s, potentially even 40s, like you can see it from the outside looking in where they're just like the big bravo, if someone says something wrong, they're going to go at them straight away. Whereas you kind of, I don't know, it's sort of like a stoic, calmness, confidentness about the way you operate under pressure. What are your thoughts around managing?
I think it's definitely discipline. I think, because in Australia we've had that absentee fathering for so long, in many young men's lives there's a gap there where they're not watching, a strong dad manage himself. I mean, if you think back to, the men who were heroes in Australian pop culture, is it Mr. In Between, that Aussie guy just loses and he shoots people. That's right. He throws punching people. And that's the heroes that we had. Men that were just fiery and they have punch on the pub. And I still love those characters. Yeah. But I realized they put their partners under incredible pressure. Yeah. And they put their kids under pressure. But also what happens if you're not learning discipline mentally and stepping away from the situation or watching it and looking for the risks that you're not seeing, your tunnel vision stops you seeing the other risks, like getting king hit from behind. Yeah. If you're not practicing that, it can be really hard when something does go wrong for you to see clearly the way out. And I think the way that I have kind of developed over time is just trying to slow things down. I always want to buy myself time. Yeah. So if something's been recognized as a risk beforehand, I'll have 2 to 3 scenarios already formulated in my mind about how I'll react if that happens and how we get out of it. Sure. So that it's not a dress rehearsal. Well, it's not the first time where it does happen. And I think Kit's seen that happen multiple times where he's come on, gone, Dad, holy crap. You are so calm in these situations, and it gives me peace. But that has come over time. And I also think there's a beautiful thing in your 40s where your balls start to shrink. Yeah. I think it's that whole because I'm having married to Sarah, but he's still fighting testosterone. Yeah. If any male is lying to themselves and saying that they're not tempted by other women, or in my industry, I'm working with young nurses all the time. They're often unhappy in their own lives and they're, not so much now, but when you're younger, they're projecting on you and you'd be lying to yourself if testosterone and your manly desires don't make it difficult for you. But then you get to this blissful time where you're starting to feel like the testosterone has dipped a little bit and you're not fighting the black dog. The black dog's not winning all the time. Yeah. And if I look at it, whenever I'm traveling solo, I always talk about the two puppies that start the journey with you. That's the puppy of fear and a puppy of loneliness.
Yeah.
And they grow into wolves the longer the journey goes on. And if you're feeding those wolves, then they'll consume you. And I think also as men in modern day culture, we have a white dog and a black dog internally. And whatever you're feeding will win. But you do get to this glorious time in your mid-40s where you feel like the white dog is starting to dominate.
Yeah.
And you're just softer in your communication, not so bound up and ready to fly up the handle.
When you say feed, do you mean like put more thought towards those things?
Yeah.
And put more energy towards those things? Because I look at it when I want to be in my 40s, 50s, 60s, I still want to be doing what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I still want to be going after it, whether that's in business, in physical expeditions, like what we're doing now. I still want to be out there in nature and doing this stuff. But I am fully aware that once we get over our 30s into our 40s, our testosterone drops. Like that's just a natural way of life. So I think about it, I was like, well, how do I keep that good dog inside of me?
Yeah. Well, I think you still need that. But then I look at some of the greatest female explorers of all time, like Nair, Sarah and Nair Landry, Sib Harstad, Lydia Brady. These are all women, without the benefit of testosterone who have adventured and continue to adventure at the highest level, well into their 50s. And like one of my mentors, Eric Phillips, I don't want to be rude to him here, Eric, but I would suggest he's north of 65.
Yeah.
And he's just taken a rocket to outer space with Elon Musk. So, this is, I think it's continual movement and continuous skills progression.
Yeah.
As soon as you get to a point where you feel like you know it all, that's the dangerous place, sure. And the thing is, with the wilderness, that'll never happen because there's always an environment that will challenge you or your skill set. So, I think for you, it'll just be about skills progression. And, you've got that innate kindness anyway. So it's not like the black dog's always been problems with you. I think you've got a beautiful personality for the wilderness. And just watching you in the last 2 days, you have the grit with the kindness and just little things like coming back to me, hey, can I help you pack? You're not just looking after your stuff and heading in. Like you've got that 360 vision for your team, which is so rare. Like, for most alphas who are pushing themselves in these environments, they're dangerous people to be around because they're tunnel vision and they don't see trouble coming. They don't see tinny. So when you find someone who's driven and has that 360 view, it's perfect for this environment.
Man, how do you take the learnings from the wilderness? Obviously, like you've been out in multiple different teams throughout your years. How do you apply those adventure exploration journeys in a team environment? How do you take that back into your veterinary practice, business, life? Like, is there crossover there?
Absolutely. And we've been able to build a very successful, busy business without a hell of a lot of calorie drain on me or my marriage because of everything I learned in the wilderness.
See, that's awesome because from the outside looking into any sort of successful businessman or women, I just imagine the only way you got there is through exhaustion, like nights, not sleeping, and just a whole lot of grit towards that one thing. But then I think I was like, well, can you have what I was talking about is having everything, right? Like having the beautiful family, the partner, being able to invest time into that, being able to invest time into your business, and then still being able to go do your own personal journeys. You think you can do all of them together?
I think it's a real juggle. And in answer to your question, yes, but I think at the beginning of my career, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And if I wind back to when it shifted, it was 2004, 2005. We'd been operating a veterinary company for about 6 years, and I was all about, world domination. Build this huge veterinary company, and, when's enough? And I was working 70, 80, 100 hours a week. And you can't be with your kids if you're working those sort of hours.
Yeah.
And then I just saw the tsunami hit Aceh. And obviously, having grown up in Indonesia for a big chunk of my life, I spoke Indonesian.
Yep.
And watched all the grief and loss over Boxing Day and then the day after. And then the day after, I think it's the 28th, I said to Sarah, I've got to be there. I've got to help. And she's like, okay, we've got to just be careful. So got on the plane, flew to Singapore, then Medan, and then on a truck and got trucked in and spent 3 weeks on the front line, basically.
As a like medical work?
So started as with a mob called Christian Surfers who were handing out food parcels.
Sure.
And then I was going past a tent where there was a doctor struggling to understand a lady with a terrible laceration on her arm and corrugated iron, and she's trying to work out how the cut happened. And I leaned in and asked her in Indonesian and translated for her. And then when I turned to go, she grabbed me by the arm and said, "You need to stay." And it was Medicines Sans Frontières, a French aid group.
Yeah.
They were the first ones on the ground. And so for the next 3 weeks, I worked with them and probably had 1,000 interviews with people that had lost everything.
Yeah, what is it? Because you said the tsunami. So the tsunami came through. Those who are not familiar with the event, like, what was the tragedy? Like, what gives you
it was huge. I think it was the single biggest loss of life in human history.
Yeah.
600,000 people died over
600,000.
600,000, most of them in the North Sumatran area, because the mountains came down to the sea with about a 2-kilometre forest fringe.
Yeah.
And the wave came in at 60 to 90 feet and just wiped all these villages out.
Yeah.
And Banda Aceh was a city of probably 300,000 people, and there were 250,000 dead on the streets. There's dogs eating the bodies, and people pushed onto Rio because then earthquake first, and the Rio was all exposed, and then the water just skewered them. So they're 2 stories up, and they were getting down.
Yeah.
And we're now on like day 10, and they're still up there. So images that your brain shouldn't see en masse.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, hey, none of these people will give a damn about stuff. Every single interview was, I lost my mother, I lost my daughter, I lost my son, I lost my friends, I lost everything.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the stuff, the relationships. And then I flew back, and on the last couple of days, I was nursing a guy called Hallidan who had tetanus, and he kind of got through my armor. And I made the mistake of getting personal with him, which the professional people just don't let happen. But of the 5 people that I went up with through Christian Surfers, 2 of them killed themselves in the next 5 years.
Really? Just because it was so janky?
Just too much. It was too much to see, but. And then the other 2 both had marriages fail. And then it was me, and within 3 months I was drinking too much, playing video games till 3 in the morning, couldn't sleep.
Just from that event, or what was the deal with Hallidan?
Well, with Hallidan, I'd let him, taken him to hospital, and he was all tetanic and not thought to live, but he had so much fight left in her. And then the next day I came back and his bed was empty, and they said, I said, "Where's the man that was here last night?" And they said, he died. And what ended up happening was I had to leave the next day, got lifted by the RAF and went home. But 3 months later, Sarah's like, "Hey, you're not the man that I sent up there. You need to get your stuff together because you're losing it. And no good as a dad, no good as a husband. You need to go back to Aceh, find Hallidan or find his grave, and whatever path you took from there, take the other one and come home."
That's an incredible awareness from her.
Yeah. Well, she's always been like that. Yeah. She's great. So she knew what had happened. And I flew back with some money from our local street for Hallidan, and then I took a taxi to the refugee camp, and there was a prayer circle with all the men in it just finishing.
Yeah.
And I stepped up onto the prayer circle and saw Abang, his brother. Abang saw me and came running over and said, "Oh, the mad Aussie, return."
Yeah.
And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, I just wanted to pay my respects to Hallidan and take a different road because I'm not the man that I was.
Yeah.
And he said, "But why don't you come and see Hallidan?" And I'm like, "I thought he was dead."
Yeah.
And he said, No. They moved him to a death camp because they were too embarrassed about his condition when the first foreign aid hospitals came in. So he was put into a camp to die in the north of the city. And Abang fed him crushed rice through a straw for 6 weeks. And like the survival rate without immunoglobulins and antibodies with tetanus is almost 0.
Yeah.
So he survived tetanus without any medical care at all. And then as we came around the corner, I saw him washing in a Mandy. He's got his sarong on, and I could see all the scars on his back. I knew it was him immediately. And he turned around and said, "Oh, the mad Aussie." And we've been mates ever since. But I went home from that thinking, okay, Hallidan stood at the back of his house with his wife in one side and his two girls on the other, holding their hands as this wave came in.
Yeah.
And he got carried 6 kilometres into the forest, cut to pieces.
Yeah.
Never saw his wife, never saw his girls again. Then through Muslim law, he married his brother's wife because his brother was fishing on the beach and was killed. And then we were there 2 years later. We sailed back as a family to the same bay and were able to support him have one of the first new babies of the new era.
The new wave was coming.
The new wave coming through.
Yeah.
So it was a super challenging time, a real healing, and it just shifted the way that I looked at the family and business. But then understanding that real targeted understanding of calorie draining that we use in the wilderness, trying not to minimize, not to spend, needless calories on worry or fruitless endeavor. Really had to focus, apply that to business. And also the same mindset towards resilience, development, teamwork, optimism, and it's had incredible results on that love side.
Yeah.
Like beyond expectation.
Yeah. That story, it sparks thoughts and questions around like men, especially, probably women as well, who have gotten to a place where they're probably like not proud of. They might not have had someone like Sarah to be able to pull them up. They're aware of that. They're like, I don't know how I've got here. What advice or what would you say to like these guys to be able to navigate out of that? Like, how do I get back to where I was instead of traveling all the way back to,
Yeah, I think the younger Geoff would have had very little respect for therapists or external advice, or, you just got to muscle through and do it yourself.
Yeah.
But seeing the incredible shift in me, in Katali, in both my girls, through just having someone alongside as a therapist, someone who can coach you back to who you were, has been phenomenal. And I know so many men who struggle with sense of purpose, worth, self-confidence, that you're just desperate for them to link to an uplink or someone who could just help them step up.
Yeah.
But it's got to come from that person. They've got to ask and want it. And, the uplinking thing, just finding people that are better than you.
I've heard you mentioned uplink over the last couple of days here. What's an uplink?
It's just a mindset where you're always happy to like plug your USB into a bigger power source and suck the power out of it and then take it on. But
in the most respectful way.
Yeah, in the most respectful way. But you're going to someone who's like, say, Bourgeois friend, who's my hero in the polar sense, going to him and going, this is the journey I want to do. I don't have the skill sets. Who would you advise I train you? Yeah. And then he would go, well, you're a cheeky bastard. Because I said to him, I want you to train me to beat your record, which I beat by 17 days. Yeah. But he's like the goat. So don't go to the go to the goat.
Yeah.
And the uplinking thing, it just protects you from ever feeling like you're the man.
Yeah.
And it also protects you from thinking that the way that I am is the only way I can be. If you're feeling like, hey, I'm not quite where I want to be, you need to find an uplink. And the whole uplinking process now with the internet is so easy because you can just get on and go, okay, who's the best in the world? And if they won't return my calls, my emails, my SMSs, my Insta DM, then find the second best and just go, But I think it's more than that. It's having that mindset of humility that protects you from ever feeling like you've got there. You're always kind of growing and improving and striving. But then you get to meet the most amazing people, man. It's incredible. Like the people that I've been able to rub shoulders with and suck wisdom from in the business sense and in the wilderness sense. Just amazing.
Yeah, I think that that also probably keeps you very humble as well. Like, takes the ego out of it, because even these days, like I always think like that concept of like if and then, like if and then, like if I get that thing, then I'll be happy. Like if I get that gold, then I'll be. If I get that house, then I'll be. If I get that partner knows, then I'll be happy. And what I'm starting to realize at the same, which is so obvious, it's such a forefront of everything, but like enjoying the journey and enjoying being out here and not being in such a rush to be like, oh, but next week I got to prep for this thing, this podcast, and then actually we've got another expedition. And this time, instead of actually just being in here and enjoying the whole process.
Yeah, I think if the being present thing is so, because you also, if you're not present, not only you're not as useful to the people around you now, but you're missing things.
Yeah,
that could be refining here and rubbing that rock.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Another theme, because I think like a big part of this podcast, just in general, is just like, how do we be the best people we can be, and how can we bring out the best versions of ourselves? And throughout the last couple of days, even in this podcast now, like a big part of it, I think, has been Sarah. You know, I know you alluded to your partner quite often. You know, how important is it having someone like that to travel through life with?
Oh, if I think of all of the great blessings in my life, Sarah would be, the greatest.
Yeah.
In that, at a very young age, I met this girl that just understood the uniqueness of my mind and was willing to take the incredible good with the incredible bad. Like a lot of women, I would have exhausted 3 out of 1.
Yeah, she's very patient.
Yeah, she was incredibly patient. But she also, like, the one thing I would say, like, if I'll get into something and then I'm excited about it, and then Sarah will understand, initially be a bit resistant,
but
then when she understands it, then she gets excited about it.
Yeah.
And say the horses, for example, I reconnected with horses and all this time to get into them, and then she now loves them, and having the shared loves has been really important as well with the horses and traveling and adventure. But the number of times Sarah has talked me off a ledge and got me home, and it matured. Like our communication in the earlier traditions was very, I wouldn't say violent, but one step down. I think it was brutal. And in the storm that we talked about last night, where I really thought, this is too much. No tent can survive this.
Can you tell me the story? What were you?
So 2013, it was the first time I'd seen polar hurricane.
Is this the one that you were talking about, where your friend gave you the warning?
Yeah. So I got a warning, and then the storm just got more and more savage, and I built a snow wall in front of the tent, and the snow wall just kept getting sandblasted and falling apart. And then it got to a point where I was ringing my polar mentor, was a man in there, and Eric Phillips, and saying, satellite phone, hey, this storm looks like it's going to go beyond what the tent can handle. What do I do? So, well, you've done everything right. Now you need to set your affairs in order. So if you lose that tent, you won't be able to talk on the cell phone. So talk to Sarah and just tell her, what you feel about that, and tell her what's really hard. Don't, bullshit her. So then I rang Sarah and explained the storm, how severe it was, how, the tent was expected to breach at 80 knots, and we're already at above 70, and it ended up topping out just below 80 knots. But she was quiet for a while, and then, like a lioness, she kind of roared back there through the phone saying, everything you've put this family through over the last 5 years, training for this expedition, the Sahara Desert journey, being away training in Japan, New Zealand, the Arctic, for you to now talk of death and not coming home, I understand you're tired, but you need to get your boots on and harden the FR and get out the door. So you're not coming out of the back.
Yeah.
And then at the time I was like, whoa, okay, you have no idea what it's like in here.
Yes.
And then when I put the phone down, I'm like, well, she's right. Like I can choose to live or choose to die.
Yeah.
It's that close. Like if I go limp and just curl in my bag, the tent will breach and I'll die like within hours. So for 36 hours, I didn't eat or drink because I couldn't get the stove going, and then the of air and the temp was too extreme. and just dug that tent out, built that wall, dug that tent out, got back, collapsed, did it again. And then finally I had full on tantrum and just punched the floor of the tent. And just, this is day 4 of just, imagine if your head's in a white bucket and someone's hitting him with a stick for 4 days. I just lost it and then just cried out to God, basically going, I can't take this anymore. You need to change these cards. I do not want to not come home to this one. And then kind of collapsed, got out of my bag. And then within about 3 hours, could feel the shit. The screens were just slightly less, like the wing willies coming off the tent.
Yeah.
The tent was getting violently shaken, just a fraction less. And then 6 hours later, the storm was gone.
Wow. But you would have been exhausted.
Oh, fully exhausted and done. But then it was an interesting look at the resilient mindset, because I saw this weather window and went, I got to get out of here. I feel like there's another storm coming. So I dug everything out. It took me about 4 hours, dig the sled out, get the tent out, got packed, got moving again. Had a kite accident where I nearly lost my life because I was tired, made a mistake, and the sled launched with the kite attached to it, and it was taken off with everything. I didn't even have a sat phone on me.
Man.
I would have been left out there by myself. I had to jump on this sled, and it's spinning like at 40k an hour downwind, and finally the sled spun and the strings hit the only bit of metal on the sled and cut all 4 strings, and the kite just took off. And I was suddenly going, man, okay. And a normal person would have then put the tent up, lick your wounds. But I just had this urgency, even despite having had this terrible accident. I put a smaller kite up and got moving, and was about 200 kilometers further inland when this second storm hit. Faisal Hanesh, who's a much more recognized French polar explorer, was 3 kilometers from me, and we still are really close mates because we went through that same storm together.
Yeah.
But he didn't move, and he got smacked by the second storm. And 17 days later, he was airlifted out because he never really recovered from those 2 storms.
Gotcha.
Whereas I'd had this urgency to keep moving, and I think that's probably one of my great strengths. Is always saying, okay, you made a mistake. Don't beat yourself up too much. Like, you were doing your best.
Yeah.
It just wasn't good enough. Try again. Do it again. Keep moving. Don't sit and lift your wound. And that's probably, the result of a lot of these incredible records. And not that I went to chase the records. It was just, for me, it was always to get back to Sarah and the kids. So I'm not going to spend ages out here. I want to use the wind and I want to get home quickly. And that's been an unbeatable combo.
Man, I think like even just hearing the stories from now, but also before coming into this in the last couple of years, the ability to be able to navigate and pivot from roadblocks, like when a wall's thrown up to you and the kite's flown away, you're in a storm for 4 days, the ability to be able to pivot when you just can't go over that wall. So it's like such an incredible learning.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because it's generally how we're brought up, what we've been modeled.
Yeah.
To see a parent come to a cul-de-sac or a roadblock and then go, well, that's it. We're packing up, we're going home.
Yeah.
Or you see a parent come to a roadblock and you're watching them as a child going, okay, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
How are they going to respond? And then they're like, well, we can't get through it, so let's go around it.
Yeah.
And then, oh, wow. And they were calm about it and they just found another way and they got there.
Yeah.
And I think, that's always been a skill. There's always been, okay, let's not see it as an abstraction. Let's see it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And whether that's in business, it's a really healthy way to do business because there's always challenges in business. But I think one thing is we've always been able to stay a step ahead by just going, okay, well, that's a cul-de-sac, but let's find a way around it.
Yeah.
And if we can't go through it, let's go over it.
Yeah. I know we diverted a little bit there from relationships and partner. How long have you and Sarah been together for?
34 years, but we were dating for like 4 years before we got married.
Wow.
So 38.
What's your key to a long-lasting marriage?
I think, just having that fascination with watching how the other person reacts in the situation.
Yeah.
but, friendship foremost.
Yeah.
And like, I think physical attraction is super important, but like a friendship in that.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I always said to Kittle Dive embarrassment, I'm like, dude, just slow it down, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
slow it down, become friends before you start hopping in the sack.
Yeah.
It's got to be like men cease to look for friendship once you get what we want.
Mm.
So as a woman listening, I'd say, listen, it's not up to you. It's up to both partners. But I think just decelerating things and finding someone who thinks you're funny because you're funny, he's not laughing because he wants to play with you booze. Like that genuine, like, he finds me funny.
Yeah.
Like, I found Sarah hilarious from day one. Like, and I still find them booze. But no, it was just getting that core foundation of friendship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And situations, I know people who are really good friends and their situations change, and times when Sarah and I have not been seeing I love and hate can feel very close together, but always working your way back to each other.
Yeah.
And that really simple, never let the sun go down on your runner. So as a couple, try and get it sorted in the calendar day that it happened. Don't let it fly over till tomorrow, because there's really nothing that's too big. You can't sit down with a beer or wine or a fruit juice or whatever thing and just map it out.
Because I think about that, like those roadblocks in a relationship when it is so hard and you're like, well, is this something that you want to pursue? Like, how do you navigate that and probably more so like communicate through that? Because you mentioned communication, like you said, your communication has evolved over the time with your partner. Think about that, like what are those little like tools and traits that'll help a relationship go further? There's a communication piece to you there.
I think absolutely. I mean, the communication essentially comes back to kindness. Like, if we go, say, if you had a kindness tank, if you're with someone with a very empty kindness tank, when you're out of sorts with them, you can't rely on that kindness to soften communication, or for them to give a damn if you're upset about something. I think when you've got someone who has a big kindness tank like Sarah, if I'm out of sorts or I've made a mistake or I've done something stupid, I can rely on, I've drained that tank a little bit, but there's still plenty there for her to see the good in me and the chickiness and the fun, even though I've goofballed and written the car off or whatever I've done. And then that kindness drives good communication. I think if I could say to young people, obviously hunt outdoorsy people if you're outdoorsy, or people with similar viewpoints, or they look the way that you really are attracted to. But kindness, like, look for kindness. And like, that kindness is so powerful when things hit the fan. We don't rely on kindness when everything's going great. But, life is life. Like, shit happens. It's not going to be great forever.
You mentioned that Sarah put her foot down after projects, after 650-something days away. What does this next season look like for you? What's Geoff?
Well, it's exciting. So I bought a motorbike with a sidecar.
I saw it. Looks
it's so good. A little desert man. When we first started dating, we'd always said, hey, let's do Europe on a motorbike with a sidecar. And I haven't ridden a bike since. But Jay came along way earlier than expected. So he was like, oh, okay. So we ended up doing Europe with a Bedford van with a cotton. And all our mates were like cool and going out on nightclubs and things. And we were doing dirty nappies and going to bed early. But now, like, Sarah at the end of, I'm still on projects there. She's like, hey, I can do this. I can support you and we can still have a good marriage, but you're not going to know me because I'm starting to do my own thing. You've been away long enough this last 3 years. I've learned to be Miss Independent. And that was like, oh, wow, I'm allowed to be independent, but she can't, and then realizing the unfairness of that. And then I just have to shut up. So she's done some incredible things together, by herself, riding through Montana recently and like by herself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this girl's amazing. But she was like, hey, if you continue on doing these really long polar journeys, I'm just going to go and travel by myself.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, well, I want to be there for that. So how does it look? And that's where the sidecar came in. I said, listen, I'll learn how to ride a sidecar. And then we put Sarah in, and our eyeballs were like saucers. You're so exposed in that sidecar.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll just do baby steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a metaphor for journeys where we're together. You know, we're doing stuff together, but it's probably not endurance or polar.
Yeah, mate, to be honest, I think you can have both, right? Like I look at what we've done just over the last couple of days and how fun it's been. No service, just being out here, just with us, time to think, like all those things. But then on the flip side of that, I would also love to go in a motorcycle with a sidecar with my partner, and explore around Europe and Switzerland and do all those things. I was like, I don't think there's a reason why you can't do both.
No, I think that's kind of the explorer's message. It's like, hey, the world is a wonderful place. Like even just coming up that bowl from where we can, I could feel the wonderment of what's around the corner. Because I don't know whether I've steered this far inland. I think we've always kited for the valleys closer, or maybe one valley over. So I didn't know what was around the corner, and you could feel this like wonderment of the environment was coming. And I think that's kind of the thing. It's like, hey, just be curious, be excited about what's to come.
Yeah.
And the world's your oyster. And I know that there are people who are less privileged out there, and it's the whole thing that the harder I work, the luckier I am.
Yeah.
So you can, in Australia particularly, you can work your way out of hardship into abundance in a matter of a decade. Mm-hmm. For people in countries where they're war torn and that sort of thing, what we're talking about is a bit of a privilege and a peaceful time. But the same ability to dream an outcome, see it in your mind's eye, build what I call faith eye image.
Yeah, I've heard you use that term a couple of times. It's true.
Yeah. It's just that. You're building the outcome that you want and you're meditating on it and seeing it. And, it can come down to as simple as the fact that I've always said to Sarah, my faith eye image for the end of our days is you and me whole and in rocking chairs together on a deck. Yeah. And I meditate on that at the beginning, middle, and end of every journey. See those rocking chairs and these two old wrinkle bags sitting in it. I've got a cigar, a cup of tea. And so much so that before the last journey, Project Zero started, Sarah tattooed 2 rocking chairs on the forearm. Man. And it's such a strong image, but it's like every single journey has a faith eye attached to it. Every child's life and outcome and partner that they're with has a faith eye image attached to it. Yeah. So it's almost like it's retrovision with the 50 TVs, but all these faith eye images for every little pod of your life that you've meticulously built out. And it's that diligence that you can teach people. And when they built a faith eye image for like a moderately difficult dream, and then they get there and realize how close the actual achievement was to what they built. Yeah. It's like deja vu. If you build that faith eye image specifically, you step into it and it's like you've been there before. Then they're like, holy shit, this stuff works. Yeah. And then they build a bigger faith eye image. And then they start using it for other parts of their life, in the relationships, business, work life, whatever it is, health. Right? Dreaming of yourself at 60 with, fully robust and able to do this sort of thing. That it's an extension of the optimism, but it's also a tool that we're one of the only animals that can build an alternate outcome in your head. Yeah. So going back to people who are less privileged, one of the things that I think they need to understand is the power of the fact-finding itch.
It's like manifestation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of great sports people use it. Yeah. To get the golf ball, you imagine the golf ball on the green and then you step up to it and whack. And it's similar to what we said at the very beginning, steering the bike to where you want to go, not looking at it, but the faith eye image is a more developed use of that power.
Where did you learn the faith eye image? Where did that originate from?
I think it's probably a product of Christian teaching over a long period of time, but then applied to adventure in a way that I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
You know, the specificness of it, I've never seen used before.
Yeah.
Like for the Dome Artist climb, I knew was probably the hardest journey of my life. And it was in what they call a DNR zone. So the Russian support that I had couldn't pick me up if I had a problem then. So if you ground a hole on Dome Artist, and the reason it's so difficult, it's at altitude, it's extreme cold.
Yeah.
And wind wasn't going to be very helpful because wind in Antarctica rolls from a high point to a low point. So trying to kite uphill with a heavy sled wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So 120 kilometers from the top, I ground to a hole and then rang Sarah and said, listen, I think I'm done. I can't get back. I can't get retrieved. I can't go forward. I don't have enough food in my sled for the amount of time it was taking you to move. I think I've gone one bridge too far. And then we talked about the maturation of our communication style. She just was calm and said, hey, I know you feel that, but double your calories and sleep 8 hours and let's talk in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's simple advice. Like I literally ate 2 rations, slept for 8 hours, which I hadn't been sleeping more than 4 hours for weeks.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, there was this miracle wind blowing uphill. And I got, 16 hours later, I was on the top of Dome Artist. But I took the last step in an orange ski boot that I had meditated on for 6 months.
Yeah.
And when Scarpa sent me a box with the boots in, I was so invested in that mental image. They only make a white and an orange in that boot, the Scarpa Mistral.
Yeah.
And I opened it and it had those little beans in it that you can eat, packing beans. And I'm always terrified to part the beans to see what colour the boot is because it would shatter my faith eye image if it was the wrong colour.
Sure.
And I hadn't specifically asked for a colour because it was a sponsored boot. You just take off the screw. Anyway, I parted sort of this bright orange boot and just had this surge of joy because I'm like, okay, we're on track. And then literally 6 months later, I take that last step onto the highest part of the polar plateau.
Yeah.
The coldest naturally occurring place on Earth. And it felt like deja vu because I'd seen it. I'd seen it multiple times before. So the faith eye image was just basically a refined over journeys. But now, like I use it across everything.
Man. Sorry, 1 second. Declan, is that still rolling? Like, we'll just keep going. We'll just use that one. If these two fail.
That's about a core battery you have to use.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting with the faith eye image because I've used a faith eye image without actually knowing it's been a faith eye image. Like when I was younger, I wanted to play for like the Australian Schoolboys competition. It's a hard thing to get. It was the hardest thing to get into when you're that young.
Yeah.
And for the 2 years prior, like I wrote it up in my mirror. I visioned calling out my name in the competition, and then because it was a 6-week over tour over England and France, and it was like the coolest thing you could do as a kid. And I remember just thinking about it for years and years and years. I'd dream about it, I'd sleep on it, and like before I would go to bed, like that's when I could visualize it. And then when it happened, I was just like, oh, fuck, this thing I've been here before. Yeah. And same with my partner. She was telling me she wrote a list, like a very specific list of like what she wanted in a partner. Not so much from like a physical attributes, but more so from like a personality trait, like someone who was like playful and make her laugh, and like who was adventurous and who would do like adventurous things, but like really specific things. And she, when we got together, we've been dating for a month, she read out the list and she's like, this is you. It's no. And so it's like that manifestation piece of like, because I think constantly laughing, we constantly put a ceiling on ourselves and what we think is possible from a relationship point of view, business, friends, like whatever the thing is. But I think that ability to be able to like wipe that away and manifest things that are way more out of your reach, like, and knowing that it actually can happen, I think it's super intriguing.
I mean, it's so similar to, if you've imagined an outcome in a wilderness setting, like we're going to travel from point A to point B, and halfway along the way, things are going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Storms or crevasses or, car breaks down or whatever it is. Immediately that things are going wrong because you've got a very clear endpoint in your mind. Similarly with the faith eye image, if you've had a really clear meditative outcome that you're working towards, the minute you start going off track, say if you dreamt of being in a rocking chair, happily married at 80, and then at 55, I'm being a dick and the friendship with Sarah's deteriorating, and it's almost like the image is starting to pixelate and like get static. And immediately, hey, this is stepping off this path.
Yeah.
I need to get it back on the path.
Yeah.
So I think the faith eye image is so powerful in just that self-actualization, which is what you use to get into that team. But it's also in life that early warning system for when things are going off course.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most powerful thing because you have this incredible ability to go, let's react quickly in time rather than wait for the tram track to be ripped up and there's no way forward, which often happens if you don't have a clear direction.
How much do you listen to your gut in these expeditions and in life and business and relationships and all that and stuff?
Yeah, I was talking to you on the drive out. Like I use it more and more. Like I think it's the only times I've really got into trouble, it was through having a gut instinct and then keep on wanting it.
Yeah.
And, it's almost like you shouldn't go through this doorway and then you hold back and then something happens on the other side of the doorway that you would have been right in the path of. So I think the gut instinct thing is something that suburban life suppresses, because especially in the era where anxiety, depression, despair is so high, we mistake gut feeling for anxiety and we disregard.
Yeah.
So understanding yourself well enough to know when anxiety is rearing its head and pretending to be a gut feeling, because that can obviously stifle forward momentum and stop you hitting your full potential. So it's just training that. And I don't know anywhere better to train that than the wilderness.
Yeah.
So you have to get out there and then just start listening to your gut. And then you get to a point where like, you can have gut feeling about people that you're going to hire. Is this the right person for our company? How they're going to be, and almost like words of knowledge. Like, people, something about them that you shouldn't know, or, there's so many powerful parts of that whole piece. You're using your instinct. And I was saying to you that for me, within the veterinary industry, understanding that we've got potentially headwinds coming is generating decisions for us now, rather than waiting till things become more difficult, getting in a position where we can be ready for that now. And that was pure gut.
Yeah. Because I think about that, attaching your gut image, your gut feeling towards an anxiety or like potentially a past trigger. So, we get bit by a snake when we're younger and then we feel a twig on our ankle a couple of years later. Oh, fuck, did I just get bit by a snake? It's kind of like that feeling of, I've been here before. Is that really a snake or is it just a twig? Do you know what I mean? Like, is this gut feeling something that's actually going to be purposeful to me? Is actually going to help me? Or am I just attaching this to the anxiety? I'm trying to figure out, how do you decipher the two?
It can be really hard when you've got a partner who's on a different wavelength when it comes to anxiety. And Sarah would accuse me of never feeling anxious. That's not true. I still have human emotions, but I've just learned to control them. Yeah. They're a calorie waster, especially in this environment. Yeah. And I can't afford the calories, so let's not do it. Yeah. But then gut feeling rises and you're immediately aware of the difference and go, okay, well, let's listen to this. And I think, Africa's another great place for gut feeling, because you take the wrong turn there and you can end up in real trouble. Sure. And we've definitely been saved through many adventures there, just through gut feeling. Like I remember we were in a a national park or the Chobe National Park, and Java was in her just that hateful Latino state.
I'm sure Laura Daskin was in it.
It's just been difficult all the time, and we're the only people camping along this riverbank, and it was about a 200-meter walk to the toilet block. And I just said to Java, hey, if you need to go to the toilet, I'll take you, because there's a lot of line in the area, and I just feel like it's not safe. There's too many bushes around. Anyway, I go past that tent, and the fly's open, and the wash bag and towel are gone, and I'm like, what? She's completely disregarded any direction. So I walk up to the toilet block, and about 30 feet from the door of the toilet block, there's a big green bush on the left, and all the hair on the back of my neck goes up.
Yeah.
And I have this, like, one of the strongest gut feelings that I'm about to die I've ever had. And I back away, come around the back of the toilet, go into the door and go, Java, there's a line, I'm sure, outside. She said, oh, Dad, you're just being silly. I said, no, grab your stuff. So she comes out all wet. I literally dragging by the scruff when we go back to camp.
Yeah.
I get into the Land Rover with her straight away. It's only 200 meters, so probably within 3 minutes of her coming out.
Yeah.
I drive back to the door of the bathroom block, and all our prints are covered by the pokes of a big lion. All our footsteps, all covered.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it has saved me so many times.
What did Java say?
Oh, she was very, very respectful.
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, sorry, I'll listen to you next time. Maybe do nothing or two. And I look at who Java is now. She's just not that person. It's amazing.
Yeah, but that gut feeling is so incredible, mate. Tim Rana says, there's so many things. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Before we do wrap things up, because I am conscious of time, what do you think is the biggest thing that we haven't spoken about today that you'd like to touch on?
We probably haven't touched much on resilience in the modern era, and just how we can pass that on.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm looking at one thing, I'd love someone to listen to Keegan and company and go, man, that's something I can instill in my life today, is that supernatural resilience that you get when you mix passion, purpose, and persistence.
Okay.
So those 3 P's, if you find out what you're passionate about and just operate in that. Like, for me, I've been very lucky. I'm super passionate about animals and their welfare and just meeting more creatures. Like, the more creatures I can meet in my life, the better.
Yeah.
But I've been able to find purpose in that. And that's just diminishing suffering every day in my life. I put my boots on in the morning, and my whole job is to make an animal's life better today. And then, in those times when things are off track and not doing well, I pull on that persistence lever, which is just like, it's not good, but we will grind through this thing. I'll get knocked over 50 times and I'll get up 51 times. You only need to get up one more time than you were knocked over, and you're still there, still in the fight. So those 3 levers of passion, purpose, persistence. And then in the wilderness environment, mixing them in as well means I honestly think I'm passionate about wind. I absolutely love wind power. Like, today,
kite comes into it.
Yeah, the kite.
So
how do I harness that wind? The kites. Like, there's no one on planet Earth now who's covered more of ice, ocean, sand, desert using kite power.
Yeah.
Dixie Dancer was similar mileage, and unfortunately he died in Greenland a couple of years ago. But that passion for wind, finding a purpose in it, and doing these journeys where we're exploring the very edge of human endurance and resilience for all this time, and into a charity, and then discussions like this where we're putting some of that learning back. Yeah. And if there's one listener who's like, wow, that's a penny drop moment, then it justifies all the madness. The 651 days on Project Zero. But then that persistence, like, you can't be out here without persistence.
Yes.
Declan showed it today. He wanted to go home on day 1.
And he's laughing today.
Yeah. He's just pushed through, and he's just found another 11.
Yeah.
So, that's in 48 hours. So the persistence key, I think, from your kids on your kid, it's like, hey, I know you don't like what you do, but you don't have the option of quitting. You took this on and you get to finish.
Yeah.
I think making sure our kids finish whatever they took on and then finding what their passions are and getting some purpose attached to it. So, I mean, those 3 P's drive incredible resilience. It's just a massive piece.
Geoff, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rodney, for like this podcast now, the last couple of days, but the last couple of years of getting to know you and the Goodburn family. Like, it's just, I'm very grateful. Like, I'm very grateful to be here with you now. And I look at you as someone who I kind of want to be going forward. I love you as a really great role model, mate. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Keegan. And honestly, I think just to encourage you, like you've got the perfect wilderness temperament.
Yeah.
Like it's perfect. You've got the physique for it. I wish I had your physique.
I'm hating on the deal.
But it's the mayfly. It's just like the optimism and the love of life, and just seeing every day is a wonderful thing. I'm going to carry you far. So I have no concerns about the podcast doing well, but no concern about you doing well.
Gotcha.
And blessing people around you. So thank you.
But thank you, man. Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Keegan & Company, where it was all around the company we keep. This episode was powered by Famous Nutrition. Head to famousnutrition.com and use TRY30 for 30% off to feel famously good today. See you next time.